Something's happening to you that you've carried your entire life. You're the one in the family who feels everything, who absorbs the tensions no one else acknowledges, who carries the grief that everyone else avoids, who holds the anger that gets directed at you but originated somewhere else. You're sensitive. Too sensitive, they say. Too emotional, too much. And you've spent decades trying to understand why you're this way, why you can't just be normal like everyone else, why every family gathering leaves you exhausted and destabilized, why you absorb pain that isn't even yours, why you seem to carry burdens that no one asked you to carry. But here's what you don't understand yet. What's happening to you isn't random, isn't your weakness, isn't evidence that you're broken or too sensitive or fundamentally flawed. What Carl Jung discovered through decades of observation will either devastate you or liberate you completely. You're what he called the Sophia child, the designated consciousness carrier in an unconscious family system. And your sensitivity isn't pathology, it's function. You were chosen, not consciously but systemically, to hold and process the emotional and psychological material that your family cannot acknowledge, to feel what they refuse to feel, to know what they need to deny, to carry the shadow that the entire system requires someone to carry. And this role, this function, this burden you've been performing since childhood, it's destroying you. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because no child should have to carry what you've been carrying, and no adult should have to continue carrying what was never theirs to begin with. Jung discovered a disturbing pattern in families with high levels of unconscious material, families where trauma existed but wasn't acknowledged, where pain was present but never spoken, where dysfunction operated but was collectively denied. These families would unconsciously designate one member, usually a child, to carry the emotional and psychological material that the system needed to remain unconscious of. This child would become what Jung recognized as the family's consciousness carrier, the sensitive one, the emotional one, the one who felt too much. These Sophia children would describe remarkably similar experiences. From very young age, they felt different from the rest of the family, more sensitive, more aware, more affected by the emotional atmosphere. They could sense tensions that others claimed didn't exist, could feel pain that no one would acknowledge, could perceive dynamics that everyone insisted weren't happening. And they absorbed it all, took it into their own bodies and psyches, carried it as if it were their own. They would report feeling responsible for everyone's emotional state. If mother was depressed, the Sophia child felt they needed to fix it. If father was angry, they felt they'd caused it. If siblings were struggling, they felt obligated to help. The emotional regulation of the entire family system somehow became their responsibility, not consciously assigned, just unconsciously expected. And they performed this function automatically, without anyone ever naming it or asking for it. These children would come to Jung as adults, decades into carrying this burden, often on the edge of complete psychological collapse, exhausted from absorbing everyone's pain, depleted from processing emotions that weren't theirs, confused about why they felt so much while everyone else seemed fine. And Jung would tell them something that initially felt like condemnation, but eventually became liberation. He would say, "You were designated. You didn't choose this role. The family system chose you." And understanding how and why that happened is the first step toward putting down what was never yours to carry. Today, I'm going to reveal what Jung understood about the Sophia child, how families unconsciously designate consciousness carriers, what specific burdens these children carry, why this role destroys the people who perform it, and whether there's any way to stop carrying the family's unspoken pain without destroying yourself or abandoning the people you've been protecting your entire life. Jung's understanding of the Sophia child emerged from observing how unconscious family systems manage their shadow material. Every family has collective shadow, unprocessed trauma, unacknowledged pain, unexpressed anger, denied dysfunction. And this shadow material doesn't just disappear because it's not acknowledged. It exists, it operates, it affects everyone in the system. But conscious acknowledgement and processing of this material would destabilize the family's equilibrium, would force everyone to face what they're invested in denying, would require genuine change rather than comfortable maintenance of dysfunction. So the family system finds another solution. It designates one member to carry the consciousness that the system needs to remain unconscious of. This person becomes the family's emotional and psychological container. They feel what everyone else refuses to feel. They know what everyone else needs to deny. They carry the shadow that everyone else projects. And their sensitivity, their emotional awareness, their capacity to perceive what others can't, all of it gets pathologized, gets labeled as weakness or dysfunction or being too sensitive, when actually it's the function they're performing for the entire system. Jung identified 3 specific burdens that Sophia children carry. Understanding these burdens is crucial because they reveal why this role is so devastating and why simply trying to be less sensitive doesn't work. The sensitivity isn't the problem, the systemic burden is. The first burden is emotional absorption. The Sophia child doesn't just feel their own emotions, they absorb and carry everyone else's unprocessed emotional material. Mother's unacknowledged depression, father's unexpressed rage, siblings' denied pain, grandparents' unprocessed trauma. All of it gets absorbed by the Sophia child, who has psychic porousness that allows the family's emotional content to flow into them automatically. This absorption isn't conscious, isn't chosen, happens automatically from very young age. The Sophia child walks into a room and immediately feels the emotional atmosphere, knows when someone is upset, even when they're pretending to be fine, senses the tension that everyone else claims doesn't exist. And they don't just perceive it, they take it in, make it their own, carry it in their body and psyche as if it originated in them. Jung documented that this absorption serves crucial function for the family system. It allows everyone else to maintain their emotional denial. Mother doesn't have to acknowledge her depression because Sophia child is carrying and expressing it. Father doesn't have to process his rage because Sophia child is absorbing and containing it. The family's emotional material gets managed through the Sophia child system rather than through conscious processing by the people who actually generated it. But for the Sophia child, this absorption is devastating. They're carrying emotional weight that doesn't belong to them, processing pain they didn't create, managing dysfunction they have no power to change. And because the emotions feel like theirs, because they're experiencing them in their own body, they believe they're their own feelings. Don't recognize they're carrying absorbed material. Just think they're excessively emotional, too sensitive, fundamentally broken. The second burden is truth carrying. The Sophia child perceives what the family needs to deny, sees the addiction that everyone pretends doesn't exist, recognizes the abuse that gets normalized, understands the dysfunction that gets explained away, knows the secrets that everyone has agreed not to speak, and they carry this knowing, hold this truth, bear the weight of being the only one who sees clearly what everyone else has invested in remaining blind to. This truth-carrying creates profound isolation, because the Sophia child knows things that can't be spoken, sees dynamics that can't be acknowledged, understands realities that would destabilize the family if named. So, they carry the truth alone, hold the knowing privately, bear the burden of clear sight in system that requires collective blindness to function. Jung emphasized that this burden is particularly devastating because it makes the Sophia child question their own perception. Everyone else claims the dysfunction doesn't exist. Everyone else insists everything's fine. Everyone else treats the Sophia child's awareness as problem rather than accurate perception. So the child learns to doubt themselves, to wonder if they're crazy, to question whether what they're seeing is real or if they're just too sensitive, too negative, too damaged to see things correctly. But the perception is accurate. The Sophia child is seeing clearly, is perceiving the shadow material that everyone else is denying. And the gaslighting, the insistence that their perception is wrong, the pathologizing of their awareness, all of it is the family system's defense against having to acknowledge what the Sophia child sees. The system needs the child to doubt their perception, needs them to believe they're the problem. Because if the child's perception is validated, the entire family would have to face what they've been denying. The third burden is systemic scapegoating. Because the Sophia child carries the family's shadow material, they often become the identified patient, the problem child, the one who's too sensitive, too emotional, too difficult. All the family's dysfunction gets projected onto this one person. They become the explanation for why the family struggles. If only the Sophia child wasn't so sensitive, everything would be fine. If only they could just be normal, the family would be happy. This scapegoating serves crucial function. It allows the family to avoid examining their actual dysfunction, allows them to maintain their denial, allows everyone else to feel fine while one person carries all the identified problems. The Sophia child becomes the container for everything the system refuses to acknowledge about itself. And their struggles, their sensitivity, their emotional overwhelm, all of it gets used as evidence that they're the problem, rather than evidence that they're carrying the family's unprocessed material. Jung documented that Sophia children often internalize this scapegoating completely. They believe they're the problem, believe something's fundamentally wrong with them, believe their sensitivity is pathology rather than function, spend decades trying to fix themselves, trying to be less sensitive, trying to not feel so much, not recognizing that the problem isn't their sensitivity. The problem is the burden they've been designated to carry. Here's what actually happens in the Sophia child's development. From very young age, they learn their value comes from carrying the family's emotional material. They're praised for being understanding, for being mature, for taking care of everyone's feelings, for not adding to the family's problems by having their own needs. And they internalize this as their identity, as their purpose, as what makes them valuable. They become expert emotional regulators, learn to manage everyone's state, develop sophisticated capacity to read subtle cues and respond to unspoken needs, master the art of absorbing pain without expressing their own, and they perform this function so well, so automatically, that no one recognizes it as burden. It just seems like who they are. The sensitive one, the emotional one, the one who feels everything. But Jung observed that this role has devastating long-term consequences because the Sophia child never develops capacity to distinguish their own emotions from absorbed emotions, never learns that they're allowed to have boundaries around what they carry, never discovers that their value doesn't depend on managing everyone else's emotional state. They just keep performing the function, keep carrying the burden, keep absorbing and processing material that destroys them while maintaining the family's equilibrium. And as they move into adulthood, they carry this pattern into all their relationships. They're drawn to people who need emotional regulation, who have unprocessed material, who will unconsciously recreate the dynamic where Sophia child carries what others can't. They become therapists, healers, helpers, not because they chose it consciously, but because it's the only role they know, the only way they understand how to be valuable, the only identity they've ever had. Jung identified specific signs that distinguish Sophia children from people who are just naturally sensitive. Understanding these signs is crucial because they reveal the systemic nature of the burden rather than individual pathology. The first sign is disproportionate responsibility for family emotional state. Sophia children feel responsible for everyone's feelings in ways that go far beyond normal empathy or care. They believe it's their job to make mother happy, their responsibility to manage father's anger, their obligation to fix siblings' problems. And they feel guilty when family members are upset, as if they've personally failed to prevent it. This isn't normal sensitivity, this is systemic designation. The family has unconsciously communicated that the Sophia child is responsible for emotional regulation, and the child has internalized that message completely. They genuinely believe that family emotional state depends on them, that they're failing if anyone is suffering, that their value lies in maintaining everyone else's equilibrium. The second sign is inability to distinguish own emotions from family emotions. Sophia children often can't tell what they're actually feeling versus what they're absorbing. They walk into family gathering and immediately become anxious, depressed, or angry without recognizing those states are coming from the collective field rather than originating in them. They carry emotions for days or weeks without realizing those feelings don't belong to them, and they organize their entire life around managing emotional states that aren't even theirs. Jung emphasized that this permeability isn't just high sensitivity, it's the result of being designated as the family's emotional container. The Sophia child had to remain porous to perform their function, had to absorb rather than boundary, had to take in rather than distinguish. And now, as adult, they can't tell where they end and others begin emotionally. The third sign is pathologization of perception. When Sophia child accurately names family dysfunction, they're told they're too negative, too sensitive, seeing problems that aren't there. Their clear sight gets invalidated repeatedly. Their accurate perception gets treated as evidence of their issues rather than evidence of the family's issues. And they learn to doubt themselves, to wonder if they're crazy, to question whether their awareness is perception or projection. This gaslighting is systemic response to truth-carrying. The family cannot afford to validate the Sophia child's perception because doing so would require acknowledging the dysfunction. So, the child's sight gets pathologized, and the child internalizes that pathologization, comes to believe that their sensitivity and awareness are problems to be fixed rather than accurate responses to real family dynamics. If you recognize yourself as Sophia child, if you're carrying your family's unspoken pain, Jung would tell you that liberation requires 3 specific steps. Not easy steps, not quick steps, but necessary steps if you're going to stop performing a function that's destroying you. The first step is recognition. You must recognize that you were designated, that your sensitivity isn't pathology but function, that what you're carrying isn't yours, that the family system chose you to hold consciousness that the system needs to remain unconscious of. This recognition is painful because it means acknowledging that your family used you, that your value to them was based on carrying their burden, that what felt like love was often just appreciation for the function you performed. But this recognition is also liberating because it means you're not broken, not too sensitive, not fundamentally flawed. You're carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. And recognizing that makes it possible to consider putting it down. The second step is differentiation. You must learn to distinguish your emotions from absorbed emotions, must develop capacity to sense when you're feeling your own material versus carrying someone else's, must create boundaries around what you take in, must practice returning emotional material to its actual source rather than continuing to process it as if it's yours. This differentiation feels like betrayal initially, like you're abandoning your family, like you're being selfish or cold, because your entire identity has been organized around carrying their material. Refusing to do that anymore feels like refusing to be who you are, but Jung emphasized that you're not refusing to be yourself. You're refusing to continue being the family's container. And that refusal is necessary for your survival. The third step is conscious choice. Once you recognize the designation and develop differentiation capacity, you must consciously choose whether and when to carry family material, not automatic absorption, not unconscious performance of old function, but conscious choice about what you're willing to hold and what you're going to return. This conscious choice means you'll carry less, much less, and the family will notice. Will respond to your boundaries as betrayal. Will escalate their dysfunction to pull you back into carrying role. Will pathologize your growing health as you becoming cold or selfish, and you'll have to tolerate their response. Have to maintain your boundaries even when they're suffering. Even when they're claiming you've changed. Even when they're trying to make you resume the function you've always performed. Jung documented that most Sophia children can't complete these steps. The pull to resume carrying is too strong. The guilt about family suffering is too intense. The identity investment in being the emotional caretaker is too deep. They recognize the pattern, maybe even develop some differentiation capacity, but they can't maintain conscious choice. They keep getting pulled back into automatic absorption, keep resuming the burden, keep sacrificing themselves to maintain family equilibrium. But the Sophia children who do complete the process, who actually stop carrying the family's unspoken pain, they discover something extraordinary. The family doesn't collapse. The system reorganizes. Sometimes the dysfunction becomes more visible because no one's containing it anymore. Sometimes another family member steps into consciousness, carrying role. Sometimes the family has to actually begin processing their own material because designated container is no longer available. And the former Sophia child, for the first time in their life, gets to discover who they are when they're not carrying everyone else's emotional weight. Gets to feel their own feelings without absorbed material contaminating them. Gets to exist for themselves rather than for the family's equilibrium. Gets to build life based on their actual needs rather than their designated function. This doesn't mean abandoning the family, doesn't mean cutting off all connection, means relating differently, from boundaries rather than absorption, from conscious choice rather than automatic function, from genuine care rather than designated obligation. The relationships change. Some family members can adapt to the new dynamic, others can't. But the Sophia child finally gets to live their own life, rather than living as container for everyone else's unprocessed pain. The family's unspoken pain is real. The shadow material exists. The dysfunction operates. But it was never your responsibility to carry it. It was never your job to process everyone's emotions. It was never your obligation to hold consciousness for entire unconscious system. You were designated for that function. But designation isn't destiny. You can recognize what happened. You can develop differentiation. You can choose consciously what you'll carry. And you can finally, after a lifetime of holding everyone else's burden, put down what was never yours to begin with and discover who you are when you're not performing function that was destroying you.